Hello everyone, Marco Montemagno here, Digital Domination Summit 2013, and today I have an amazing guest with me. Is a man that really has got an impact on, 50 million around the world. He's one of the top business leader around. I think he's the #1 business guru, in my opinion, all over the world. I just tell you 2 words, Tony Robbins. Hi, Tony. Thanks for being.
Thanks for having me. You're the only person that can talk faster than I do. It's the Italian in us both, right?
Also we Italian, we speak with hands,
Yes,
like
we do.
it's so, like this. So Tony, I'm so happy to have you here.
Thanks
and before to start, I just give you the story, because obviously you don't know all the people following you for your long career.
Yes.
And I was thinking, gosh, when I knew Tony Robbins for the first time, so I was thinking, and then I thought, gosh, 25 years ago,
Wow.
I was a professional table tennis player. I was like not a Chinese, but I was a professional table tennis. And what happened was amazing. One day I kept losing, I didn't win any match.
Yes.
And then I bought, I was in a bookstore and I found a book from this Tony Robbins,
Yes.
Awake the Giant Within, something like that.
Yes.
And I thought, oh gosh, classic American books. I thought, it can't work. Then I started to read and I thought, that's interesting. And I checked one thing was when you were talking motion create emotions.
Yes.
That for an athlete is so important, because you need to focus and your posture is important.
Yes.
And I tried and I read the book on Wednesday, Saturday I played the match, and I started to win again. And from that moment I said, well, Tony Robbins, this guy, he deserved my attention.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Amazing.
Wow. How old are you then? How old are you now? 25 years, you can't be that old.
Yeah, now I'm 26. I know.
Me too.
41.
So you're just a young man. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing what you can do, how fast people can change.
Yeah.
We've all been conditioned to think change takes forever. It takes 10 years to change. And I always tell people, that's BS. It takes a moment. The moment you have the right strategy, if you do the wrong thing, you can work at it for 10 years and not succeed. When you have the right strategy, it changes everything. Or the right psychology.
Yeah.
You can have the right tool, but you're not going to apply it because you're in the wrong state. And in athletics, that state of mind that you described, that ability to change your state by using your body, not just your mind, is so critical. And most people, they lose that edge at times, and that's usually when I get the call to turn somebody around.
Is it right, Tony, if I say that I was thinking, in which business you are in, and from your biography, you are in many business.
Yes.
What I would say is that you're in the business of changing people's life and business life. That's in one sentence, is it right?
Yes, and if I give you one word, it'd be breakthroughs. I live to create breakthroughs.
Right.
A breakthrough is that moment in time where suddenly everything changes. And we've all had those moments where your whole relationship changed or your business changed. And some of those are negative experiences, but the positive ones, the ones where you weren't able to get something done and finally you figured it out, or finally the light went on, or finally the emotion went on, and you said, not in the day, not in an hour, this is changing now. I know how to get people not just to trigger that, but I've learned there's 3 things people need. They need the strategy, because without a strategy, you're just going to be flailing around learning by trial and error, and you'll eat up time. If you have the right strategy, you can compress decades into days. Literally, you can save that time. But lots of people know the strategy. They know what to do. Some of your viewers right now may know they have their business or they have something they want to change in their life. They know what to do, but they're not doing it. It's because they're missing the right story.
Right.
Story is just my metaphor for all the beliefs we have, all the expectations, all the rules about how life's supposed to be, how business is supposed to be. And when people don't, for example, work out, they have a story. They say, I have no time. Or the story is, oh, I've tried everything. If you tried everything, you'd be fit, right? Or I'm not in a relationship because all the good ones are gone. The story keeps us from either finding the strategy or actually accessing it and using it effectively. But the problem is, if you tell somebody you got a lousy story or you have a bunch of limiting beliefs, they'll look at you like you're crazy.
Yeah.
The way you change people is you change their state.
Right.
The mental emotional state is what you made a shift in back then, even with table tennis. You did it physically. There are many ways to do it, as you know.
Yeah.
But like when you think of somebody and you think of somebody you get upset with, when you get in an angry state, you'll remember everything they ever did that pissed you off, right? Instantly. But if you're in love, like head over heels in love, like I see you are with your wife over here, your child to be, it's very touching to me. I love that.
Yeah.
But when you're really in love, what's wrong with life? Nothing. So your story about life changes when you change your state.
Right.
When you change your state, story, and your strategies, you can create a breakthrough. So I do that with businesses. Like I'm obsessed with what makes a business grow. How do you help them market more effectively? How do you help them innovate? But I'm also equally obsessed with the people. And businesses are made up of people, so they merge together.
So the 3 S, strategy, story, and states.
Yes.
That's what is really making the difference.
Well, it's much more complex than that. But I'm going to give you an answer in 2 seconds. I've tried to figure a way to encapsulate it for people because if you're not making progress, if you're not making a breakthrough, you either don't know what to do, or you're doing something but it's ineffective, or you got limiting beliefs, or you're in a state where you're not using any of this stuff, right? And so if we hit all 3 of those, we're going to create a breakthrough.
Actually, when you do an interview, you bring with you this kind of block notice,
Yes.
And I know that you probably think that I took my questions, but I took my block notice to get notes from all the things that I will learn from this interview, so that I was trying to use it in a different way. One question. 2013. Imagine that Tony Robbins arrived from the moon in this world in 2013, and you have to start from zero, from scratch.
Yes.
You had an amazing career. I mean, this is just, guys, go on Google and look for Tony Robbins, and you'll discover billions of things. Where would you start from if you should start today in 2013 to launch a successful business?
Well, I think any business, doesn't matter if you're coming from the moon or you've been here forever or not been here at all, you have to you can't just come up with an innovation. People say, well, innovation's the key. I know that all businesses, Deming talked about this, so many different teachers have talked about it. It's all marketing and innovation. Drucker used to say, all businesses is marketing innovation. Well, what is that? Innovation is finding a better way to meet people's needs than anybody else does. And it's not enough just to innovate. You got to keep innovating. Apple's a perfect example. It's the most successful company in the world, but the leader was such an innovator. He drove an innovation culture that right now they're in a little bit of a lull. Now, most of us are hoping that they're going to turn that corner, but they're still doing great products, but they're not real breakthroughs. They're giving us some of the same stuff, but they aren't making it unique enough. And then the second part of a business is marketing, which is getting people to want to do business with you. Well, today we live in a world where it used to be that you could put out, the average person would watch advertisements, and after 4 ads, on average, at least in America, I don't know what it is in Europe, if they were going to buy, they would take some initial buying action. Now it takes 16 exposures. So the cost has gone crazy. So how do you break through that? The only way to break through that, some people do it by spending so much money and creating crazy ads that make you pay attention because they're so funny or bizarre or raw. But a lot of those ads, you don't buy their product. You laugh. You know the company, but you don't buy their product. Because it's not necessarily bringing you in. The other way a small business can do it is you've got to figure an innovation that meets a need that's missing. It's not enough just to have innovation. A lot of business owners go, I have this great idea and I'm so excited and they're going to go launch it. But there's not that big a need. And if you're going to build a business of scale, it has to feel a significant need in an innovative way, and then you got to market it. Now, how do you market it? Well, the best marketing of all is having a product that meets people's needs so well that the word of mouth is off the charts. And then the second way to do it, because there's no replacement for that word of mouth. And then the second way, and by the way, that's what's made my career go for 36 years, right? People saying, oh my God, not it was good, not that I had a good time. It was one of the greatest experiences of my life. There's nothing like it. You got to go. And people think they're crazy until they go and get an experience. But then on the other side of it, you can also market today and have a huge advantage if you make your mentality of marketing what I call VAM, V-A-M, value-added marketing, where instead of trying to compete for eyeballs, you go find out who that client is and you find a way to meet their needs and you do things for them that really meet their needs. I don't care if it's educate them, provide them an insight, something that gives them more convenience. The actual marketing itself does that for people. And then they begin to understand you, recognize you, like you, trust you, and want to do business with you. And that's the way to do it today because, for example, I was at Nike and they called me up and they said, we want you to do a TV ad for us. And I said, look.
I saw it.
Did you? Yeah.
Amazing.
So my first response was, I don't do commercials because I did silly infomercials for years because it was the only way to reach people, but I don't do commercials. And they came back and they said, but a bunch of your friends are going to do it. And I said, really? They go, yeah, we're going to have Richard Branson and Serena Williams and Kanye West.
Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, Kobe Bryant. And I'm like, and he said, it's going to be you, and they're going to be the center of it. We're going to pretend Kobe is you. And they give me this whole thing. And so I called Richard and I said, are you really going? He goes, yeah, I'm going. And Serena, I'm really going. So we go to do this piece. You imagine how much money they spent to get all those people in one room to do this tongue-in-cheek ad that really doesn't change, it's nothing about the product whatsoever. It's just to try to get your eyeballs and attention. So most small businesses don't have those resources. They have to make up with it with an extraordinary product that meets the needs, and they got to make up with it by finding a way to do value-added marketing so that people say, this is someone I want to do business with. You can blow out a Nike if you can create a direct relationship with the consumer, and you can do that today because of social media and because of the impact of social media when you serve people.
Yeah, I was talking with Seth Godin, one of the biggest
He's
experts.
a genius.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of Seth. And whatever you're going to tell me he said, I agree. But tell me anyway. I want to learn.
And I was talking with him, and in the end, he was talking about this fact, his purple cow theory. So to be remarkable, this is the way to go in the marketing. So definitely, maybe makes no real sense. It's not talking about a feature, the advertising that you did, but it's remarkable. People think, oh gosh, this is super cool, and they associate it with the product and so on. Well, one thing before talking about business, I have obviously a lot of things to ask you about business. I was curious what really inspires you every day, because I was thinking, okay, Tony is waking up in the morning, and why should you go to work,
Well, why should anybody, right? Some people go to work because they have to. I go to work because I want to. And I also don't think of it as work, the old adage, if you can make your vocation your vacation, you never have another unhappy day of your life. Every day is a joy. And I love my wife. My wife inspires the hell out of me. I love my kids, but I also love making a difference. And I'm lit up by seeing people lit up. That moment of aha, when people get that aha moment, when they all of a sudden, when they go from like, I'm not going to settle, that strength you see in somebody's face, when all of a sudden one day they go, no more, and they shift. So I look at all the ways to do that. And also, I'm just curious. I'm always learning. So I'm always making new distinctions about business or about relationship or about finances or about emotions. To me, most people major in minor things. Most people know more about stuff that doesn't matter. They know more about Lindsay Lohan than they do about their own business, or they do with their own personal life or their emotion. So I'm obsessed to say there's only a half dozen or so, maybe a little more than that, subjects that really matter for everybody. Your body. Yeah. If you don't have energy, forget it. I don't care who you are. You want to go on a job interview and you got no energy, it's going to show. You want to have a great relationship and you want to have some passion, you're going to have love with low energy, but you're not going to have passion with low energy, right? You're not going to be somebody who inspires anybody, your kids or your coworkers, if you don't have energy, right? So I look at the physical body. Most people will do things for money that they die to get rid of, right? Or they give the money up all day long to have that health back, and most people don't do it. So I look at those tools. I look for strategies, like little things, like, I found out, I started studying the impact of coconut oil, and a bunch of studies being done on what it does for not only for memory, and one of the biggest challenges we have in our society is aging people losing their memory, as you know, right? But it causes your body to burn fat. And you don't have these fluctuations in your body of blood sugar if you take it. If you just take 1 teaspoon of virgin coconut oil 3 times a day, you will have no sugar cravings. People that are addicted to sugar and get them off like that, 3 teaspoons, 3 times a day, it changes them. It causes your body to burn ketones, which is fats. So it's like, this is just one silly obsessive fact that I find out, right? I got to share this with everybody, right?
I have to go to buy now immediately.
So, but I'm always looking for what is that in a relationship. So I look at your body, I look at your emotions, because that's the quality of your life. If you got $1 billion and every day you're pissed off and frustrated and you're angry, where you live emotionally is the quality of your life. And so then I look at, okay, what about intimate relationships? Because that's where all the juice is and all the pain is for most people. And then I look at, obviously, how do people use their time? Not managing it, but mastering it, squeezing out of that time what you want. Then I look at the issues that relate to your work, your finances, and then the spirit, not religiously, but at a spiritual level. What makes you light up? What is it that makes you feel like you're growing and giving? What makes you celebrate life? So outside running your business, those 6 or 7 subjects to me is all of life. So every day I wake up wanting to learn more and share more in that area, and nothing's more inspiring because it changes people's lives.
I want to talk a little bit about your digital life.
Yes.
Because I was very curious when you started. I remember more or less the day that you arrived online.
Wow.
Because you did a lot of events, obviously a lot of physical events, big success. Well, we here in London now, and you just did another amazing event with
5,000 people all rocking last night.
Crazy,
and
huh?
I'm in the middle of it. I'm going back.
Yeah. And so I was always wondering. I thought, gosh, how Tony will manage, the online part, which is different, and how he will emerge the offline platform that he has with the online side. Can you elaborate on that? Because I think it's very interesting for all business that maybe they're good on the physical, on the traditional business, but when they go online, they really don't know the way to go.
Well, I look at the
and sorry, by the way, you have over 2 million followers on Twitter, so you are top LinkedIn influencer, so from zero, you went immediately.
No, we've been very
top
fortunate.
Plus, yeah.
Well, if you want to know the secret to it, I think the secret is what you do offline is as important as what you do online. If you don't add value offline, people don't come to see you, right? So I think it's an extension of your relationship with people. I look at Twitter for me, as my way of using it, is the world we're in has so much information coming at us that we're no longer in an information age, we're in an attention age. Like everybody's fighting for your attention.
Yeah.
And we're drowning in information and we're starving for wisdom. So what I look at is, I look at it myself as an intelligent browser. Like I follow certain people, like say Richard Branson, or a variety of people that I love and personally know, Mark Benioff, people like that. They're friends of mine, but even friends of yours, you don't talk to every day.
Yeah.
And they're looking for content that they want to share that's interesting. So they help me to take all the data and bring it down to stuff I might really want to take a look at. And then I try to be that for other people.
Okay.
And so in Twitter, you only have 140 characters. So the key is know your limitations. So I look at it this way. I plant seeds of inspiration, which is what people want in forms of quotes. I bring links that are things that are entertaining and interesting and that tell people what's coming. I'm very interested in the newest technology, not just devices, but in health and fitness and things. So anything that can inspire and educate people, I try to be a source of. I have my individual conversations. I do them by direct messaging. Some people think I don't even talk directly on Twitter, but I do. I talk every day. Okay. I just don't want to fill my feed with a million other things that are there that someone might not be interested in, and I can go directly to people. On Facebook, my Facebook is an extension of that. On LinkedIn, I spent a bit more time because I had a larger venue. I could put more content, and I don't know where we are right now, but we were in the top 5 most followed people on LinkedIn, which was pretty exciting and fun. But it's also my audience. It's business people that I'm helping to work with. So my answer to your question would be, if you want to succeed, you got to know the limitations of the technology as well as the strengths.
Yeah.
So if I, in the beginning on Twitter, I was trying to like answer everything, and there's 140 characters not going to happen. So a link to something that gives answers, right? A link to something, an idea is something. It's beautiful. Use it to help people understand what you're looking at that you think is valuable, that you think it might be valuable for them as well. Yeah. And it's a way to stay personally connected. Facebook, a little more depth. LinkedIn, more of the business audience. And it's like we can go a little deeper there, a little more content there. But none of it is a seminar. So what I also do is webinars.
Yeah.
And so, for example, you said you just attended the entrepreneurial one I've got. So I put a 5-week business course together that, I mean, anybody's gone through it will tell you it's worth thousands of dollars, and I just put it out there and say, add value. I'm going to add value. I'm not holding anything back from anybody. This is some of the best stuff I know that can help you grow your business. Go to the session once a week. It'll cost you nothing. If you want to do more business with me and become a client, I'd love to be able to serve you. But if you don't, go rock and roll and build from this. So I think an attitude of generosity, true generosity, not fake generosity, an attitude of trying to add value everywhere you are, offline and online, is really the key.
I was talking with a Digital Domination Summit speaker the other day.
Yes.
And well, it was funny because he said, "Hey, Marco, you remind me of Bear Grylls." And the guy who's the explorer, going around. And I thought, gosh, I'm not like Bear Grylls. I don't go in Sahara Desert. I don't eat, spiders. Or he said, no, but because you explore great people minds in the digital world, try to get a recipe, and then bring it to people or business. And I thought, gosh, cool. I thought, well, I will use it for my description. I never thought about that. And what I was always looking at your career was your ability to model, to do modeling great people and find patterns. So I think you are the pattern master, in my opinion. In business, what are the most important patterns that you discover of most successful people? If you can, summarize the most important in your opinion.
The most successful people, period. If you gave one characteristic above all else, the one universal characteristic, I can determine when someone's going to succeed or fail: hunger. If a person has hunger, that drive, that inner drive, not drive somebody else gives them, but something inside, there's a curiosity, there's a demand, there's a need to give, there's a need to grow, there's a need to expand, there's a need to change the world. If that hunger doesn't ever get fully satisfied, that person will be successful. Because most people, if they are hungry and then they achieve a certain level and they're like, why go to work today? I've done it. Well, what else am I going to do? When you lose your hunger, you lose your drive, you lose your life. So hunger is the first characteristic. But I think the second thing is extraordinary passion. Because some people are hungry, but they just don't have enough energy to bring to the table. You find somebody, I don't care, and they all have different styles, don't get me wrong. Mark Benioff is a dear friend of mine who started Salesforce.com out of one of my seminars. He worked for Oracle, he left, he set this goal that day: I'm going to build Salesforce.com, I'm going to make it a $100 million company. His goal was $100 million. This year they're going to do $4 billion 14 years later. Now Mark has got hunger, he never is satisfied. It doesn't mean he doesn't enjoy where he is, he totally enjoys where he is, but there's always a new level he's got to give, he's got to contribute, he's got to be on the next edge of, he's got this curiosity, he has this passion. But the third thing they all have is incredible standards. Steve Jobs had passion, different style, not talking fast like me. You could see it in the gleam of his eye. Steve Jobs had a hunger. It was never good enough. Steve Jobs, God rest his soul, this is a man who had standards that made people freak out to go sit down with him because nothing was good enough. But that's how he built the most successful company in the history of the world. So those might be three. I could give you a dozen, but those three off the top I think are the most important one. And if you don't have that hunger, you got to get hungry again. You can get hungry by getting around where it's better.
Right.
Like if you get around people that are incredibly successful and you spend time around there, something might strike you and you might say, you know what am I doing settling for this life? This is what I'm about. Or you might get hungry because you hit the ground hard enough. Like you fail hard enough that finally it shakes you up and you say, I'm never going to be here again. Right. It happens on both sides, but hunger is that base key.
Ultimate business advantage. I'm following this, but you have several products and services and coaching. I mean, you do a lot for business around. One topic that is very interesting for business today is how do you find your customer? How do you find your ideal customer? That's the problem. And everyone say, you have to find your ideal customer. But then I think, how? I mean, where do I start from?
Well, I think there's a problem that happens before that, if I may ask or may say. I think it's hard to know who your ideal customer is unless you've discovered who you need to be. I start business owners out with a simple question. I say, what business are you in? And how's business? Those are two questions Peter Drucker always asked, right? And they're pretty easy questions. And no matter what someone says verbally, you can see how business really is. It's really going good. No, it's not, right? But when I do that, then I ask them the next question, which I say, what business are you really in? Because somebody might say something like, well, I'm in the medical supply device business, right? Well, there's no emotion or juice in that. And they got in that business at one time for juice. So I said, what business are you really in? What got you in this business originally? And they'll go, well, my mother was ill when I was a kid, and she was saved by these medical devices, and she was able to be pregnant because of that, I'm here today, and that's why I got in business. Well, where did that go when you got into medical devices business? So what business are you really in? He goes, I'm really in the business of saving lives. I'm really in the business of helping medical doctors to make a bigger difference. I'm in the business of making sure that people stay in hospitals less. And there's this emotion that starts to come out of him. And in that state, you're going to be able to figure out who your ideal client is. Very different than, who's my ideal client? Where do I start? You have to get associated with business you're in. But I also bring up another question. What business are you really in? What business do you need to be in? Because Apple is the best example of this. Apple was in the computer business, and they were a disaster. I mean, they were a total disaster. They were one of the best companies in the world, and most of us remember back in 1997, those of us who love Apple were thinking, how do we stay with them? Their company's going to go bankrupt. They brought Steve back. What did Steve do? Well, brought a lot of enthusiasm and passion in marketing, but the first thing he really started to do, and people I know who spent time with him he said, what business are we in? Computers. What business do we need to be in? What business are we really in? We're not just in computers. At our best, we brought magic to people's lives. At our best, we lit people up. At our best, we brought awe and wonder. At our best, we connected people. At our best, we were cool, and we made other people feel cool. And he said, what we really are is we connect people to their passions. And he said, what are their passions? Music, pictures, each other, communication. Well, that shifted them from Apple computers. Gradually, what business do we need to be in? Well, more than half of Apple today is what? It's a phone company. They do more than half their business as a phone company. If you look at what actual computers are 20% of Apple's revenues, and they just broke $100 billion in sales, and they're not at their highest peak of innovation right now as they were before. So this is one of the most powerful companies in the world that changed, because if they would have stayed a computer company, there's no way they'd be in the position they're in. They became Apple, not Apple Computers. You might be in the wrong business. Before you figure out who your ideal customer is, find out what business you're in. What business are you really in? What business do you need to be in? Because I can tell you in 2008, I looked around I have a dozen companies. I looked at my own companies, and I looked around at people around me who were very successful that were really struggling at the toughest time of 2008 when people just were really fearful. And the thing I realized was, you have to decide, what business do you need to be in the future? Because there are still people spending money, just fewer of them. Who's still spending money? Who still has needs? You might have to go meet those people's needs and make them your ideal customer for a while the economy is adjusting. And that's what we did with some of the companies that I coached.
Two questions in one. Number one is you run several different business because, you are, of course, you are in talking with businesses, but you have also, I think, a real estate business. You have several.
Hospitality.
Different
medical management, yes.
And of course, charity. But a lot of different sectors.
Yes.
How could you handle everything? You should be expert of each of them, or what's your suggestion about this?
Well, my suggestion is get good at one business.
Okay.
Probably the biggest mistake that young entrepreneurs make is they start getting excited about so many projects, and then you can only give so much focus. It's like you have one child, you want another and another and another. Some people can handle that, but most people have no hair that do that. It's not saying not to do it, but unless you're really skilled, you're probably good to start with one business. You go to the other ones because this one isn't giving you enough reward. If you do that with your children, this child's never going to develop. Right? Or they're going to have problems. And that's what happens in a lot of relationships. So you should stick with it. But once you succeed and you know the fundamental patterns of what makes a business succeed, I only enter businesses that I am passionate about. I'm as much an artist as I am an entrepreneur, meaning I want to do things that are exquisite. So for example, my resort in Fiji, Namali Resort and Spa, is the #1 resort in the country. It's now the #1 resort in the top 10, I should say, in the South Pacific, depending on which magazine you read. Oprah went there last year and she made it her #1 place in the world to go for Oprah Winfrey. So we built an incredible place. It was a backpackers resort that had 6 little places, and now I've got 525 acres. I bought the entire rainforest and preserved it because they were cutting it down. We have 3 miles of ocean frontage. We have 125 staff members to take care of 40 guests. That's not the best business to be in, but it's damn fun. I love it. I enjoy it. People's lives are changed. So I pick some businesses, frankly, not because it's the highest margin business, but because it's something that is an extension of what I want to give to the world. Okay. Then I have other businesses that are much more profitable. They have much bigger margin, but they still are something I believe in. So if you know how to run a business and you're totally passionate about the area and you've got strong enough people, I couldn't do any of this unless I also had recruited the best people. So I have the best people. We agree on the outcomes and purposes, not every activity. I cut them loose to make sure, as long as we're aligned on the outcome and purposes, what needs to be done and why, how they get it done is their business. And they do things I wouldn't have done. They're smarter than I am in a lot of areas. So I try to hire smarter people, be in businesses I really know, businesses I'm passionate about, and businesses that I'm a consumer of, because then I can taste and experience whether or not it meets the standard that I want for it. And I'm in business because it's fulfilling. Right. I certainly know how to make money and done extremely well in that area, but that's not what drives me personally. And for some people, it is what drives them. And so they should pick a business that has the highest margin, that in the life cycle of an industry is on its way up, not on its way down. You know, that's really important. If you're in the selling of pencils and paper and staples and things of that business, you know, that industry is midlife to starting to age. Even if you do really well, you're not going to go very well unless you're going to reinvent that industry with something new. So if you're purely for the money, you better look at the life stage. Even if you're not, you should look at the life stage because it affects your business. You should look at what your passion is, and then you should make sure you got the right people, clear outcomes, and then do you have the skills to really do this?
I recently heard Richard Branson talking about Steve Jobs, and it was very funny because the interviewer said, "Hey Richard, what do you think about Steve Jobs?" And he said, "Yes, Steve Jobs, he was great. He was a good manager." And I thought, a good manager? I mean, the entrepreneur. But then I was thinking, and obviously, if anyone else would have said that phrase, the world would start a revolution. But Richard Branson, when speaks, probably he knows his stuff. So I was thinking, and I thought, gosh, he's right, because Steve Jobs was only inside his company, so it was not really delegating, was the #1 person.
Yes.
And not everyone wants to launch their own business. A lot of people, they just want to work for someone else, which is fine. And I would like to understand if you have any tips for people who just want to improve their career. You know, they're not entrepreneurs, but they maybe have to go to a job interview and they don't know exactly what to do, or they want to be remarkable, but they don't know where to start from. Any help for them?
Well, of course. I mean, most people don't work for themselves. If that's what you're made of, I'd say go for it. But if you're not, you still have to think like an entrepreneur, because the world is entrepreneurial today. So if you're going to move up in a company, you have to be a person whose #1 focus is add more value than anybody else does. It's the only way to do it. If you want to make twice as much money in half the time, or 3 times, or 4 times, or 10 times, you got to figure out how do you add 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times the value? How do you become so valuable to that company? Not by manipulation, by finding things that you can do for people. If you're going on a job interview, the #1 thing I would do is do all the homework you can about that company, about who you're going to meet with, about how the company operates. And today with social media and with the web and with conversations, you know, you can find out so much if you just take the time. Instead of doing 800 interviews, I'd be picking what my top 5 are, and I'd learn everything I could about those companies. And I'd think, are there some skill sets I need that I don't currently have that I want to go add to my repertoire so I can bring that to the table for this company as well? How might I retool my skills? Because a lot of people today are just going out on job interviews, especially in America, where there have been people that have been, on unemployment for 2 years or more. And what's happened is they've lost confidence. They're not in state. They aren't certain they can succeed. And their skills are antiquated. So we're living in a world where change is happening like this. And you don't have to be in the tech business to know that the intelligence of the tech business is starting to seep into every industry. Yeah. And so today, you might want to say, okay, where's my best opportunity? There's a growing industry, obviously, in the medical field. There's a growing industry in clean energy. Maybe I have to go retool myself so that I can go get the kind of job that I want, as opposed to why do I keep failing? That'll never happen. Second, do your homework on targets, and then I would also do your homework on the person that's going to interview as much as you could.
Okay.
Then I'd put myself in state. I'd really say, how can I add so much value? And I'd be in there with specific things you could do. And last thing I do is go say, have some fun. Because if you enjoy yourself, the interviewer will enjoy you. But if you're in there like every moment, what you're trying to squeeze that in, you're not going to have a good time. I think you've got to be natural and real. And then the last one I'd say is go until. As simplistic as that is. I mean, guys like Disney, most people have forgotten. The guy was turned down by 102 banks. Yeah. 102 banks before they finally said yes. I mean, Colonel Sanders, 1,009 no's before he got his first franchise. 1,009, 2.5 years, sleeping in a car in his rumpled white suit, right? So even if you aren't an entrepreneur, you still have to have the entrepreneur's drive and hunger. You still have to think about how to add value constantly, and you've got to be able to connect with people. Those skill sets are invaluable whether you own your own business or not.
Right, last question and then I'll let you go, Tony. Thank you so much for your time. I was wondering if there is an app or a website or a digital tool that you use every day and you think, gosh, this is for business, very good for being more productive or effective. Is any chart that Tony Robbins digital
I use a lot of different apps. But what's interesting that I found about apps is there are very few you use consistently like that. A lot of them, in the early days, you downloaded everything, it was all apps. But I found there are a lot of cool apps. I mean, obviously I use all the social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, and so forth. There's ways to connect and make things happen. But I personally like to look at things and say, what's something that I could actually get some value from more long term? Okay. And so, for example, if I pulled mine out here, I'd have the stuff that is my personal life. Like I hear music and bam, I got Shazam as an old app. I still use it all the time. I got a million other apps that I didn't apply. But on the business side, I'd say, I use LinkedIn to go search other elements. It's probably one of the things I use the most that I like. I use Twitter from a perspective of the ability to have a direct conversation business-wise with my clients and customers, and sometimes I'll ask them questions and I'll get a lot of a diverse response.
And it's you on Twitter.
And it's me. I'm the only person on Twitter. I could have a whole lot bigger following probably if I did it. On Facebook, if it's not me, it says it's not me, and most of the time it's not. Because there's only so much time. LinkedIn, it's me. Twitter, it's me. So anyway, the point is, though, I use it sometimes to get feedback. What do you think of this? Where is this? And I'll get a group of people to go to a website to give that feedback to make that happen. But on my own experience right now, if I open my apps here and I go, what's on the front page here of this piece? I got Orchestra that I'm playing with right now, which is a great tool for kind of managing your time and so forth. Doesn't quite meet all my needs. I've had Wunderlist in the past, which I'm not using anymore. They've just upgraded it. But I look here and go, okay, it's really the stuff that I'm using here comes back to LinkedIn. Mailbox. I love Mailbox. It's a brand new app. Yeah. And it's really useful for being able to manage your email. It's something that I've wanted for some time that makes things of that nature. But most business apps that I've seen need to lead to something deeper. Yep. They lead because there's only so much you can do with an app other than manage processes or time, and most of those things are built into anybody's phone.
Great. Mailbox, by the way, great success.
I think so too. Yeah,
amazing success. They got acquired by Dropbox, I think, recently.
So I think the same people that are Orchestra actually built it and sold it to Dropbox. I think you're right.
Tony, thank you so much. Tony Robbins, Tony, good luck for everything. Thank you.